All right, I'm back. We're going to check out this video by Coleman Hughes titled Nick Fuentes Knows Exactly What He's Doing. But first, we're going to just check out Coleman Hughes and his bio and stuff. All right. I kind of took a glance through here. Newark Academy, I know where that is. Been there before. Columbia University, been there a couple times. Okay. So he's against reparations, which is interesting. Because he's definitely presented as kind of like a right-wing kind of black guy. Colette, Spectator, National Review, Policy Research. So he's pretty deep into the anti-reparations thing. Okay. But then he's also defending this idea of racial color blindness, which I don't understand that. I mean, sure, on like government forums and stuff like that, probably should just get rid of all that racial stuff and just hire the person that's most qualified. But I think in public life and stuff like that, people are gonna recognize there's different races and stuff. Like they're gonna be like, hey, I'm this race and we do this and our hair is like this and clothes fit us like this and we got to go to these type of doctors. It's a real thing. I mean, yeah, public policy, that's true. Okay. So he doesn't believe that cops have a racial bias, which, I mean, if you look at the statistics, they are more likely to shoot a white person than a black person. So that is kind of true. Yeah, I mean, there's reasonable doubt on the Floyd thing, for sure. Okay. Now, this is where it gets interesting, where he tells people that they shouldn't really compare the Palestinians to blacks. And in fact, that it's more like the Jews are more like the blacks, or Jewish people. It says Jews there, but Jewish people are more comparable to blacks. And he also believes that Israel's war with Gaza does not constitute a genocide. Now, I think this is just a loaded term, where it's like a legalistic term, kind of, where it's almost impossible to define. But I mean, can't we say that Israel's war in Gaza is bad? Like, why do we have to use this legalistic term all the time? Why can't we just say, this war is bad, right? Killing people is bad. Blowing people up is bad. Why does it have to be like a legal term where you can like, people have had like 90-year-long debates over how this term is used, right? It's like, oh, is this a genocide or a homicide or is it just a ethnic cleansing or is it just a war? It's like, why can't we just say bad? Do you believe it's bad? That's what I'd like to know. It's like, okay, maybe it does not constitute a genocide, but does it constitute a bad? Is it bad? Because that's not clear. Like, why can't you just say, hey, man, I don't know what a genocide is really because it's such a loaded term, but it's definitely bad, right? Okay. So then who is the free press? Well, the free press is this website, I guess, and his YouTube channel and a couple other channels that are associated with CBS and Barry Weiss. So this is part of that stuff. He's got a lot of articles on Nick Fuentes, December 1st, December 4th. He's already got 2 there. So he's really going in. He just really started going in on. Wonder what he has to say about that too, huh? Okay, so that's about it on Nick, but he's really going hard in these last couple days. All right. I'm just going to play the video, but in the background, so I don't get a copyright type of thing.
Sand once sued a photographer for putting a picture of her cliffside mansion on an obscure website, arguing that it threatened her privacy. Her actions backfired spectacularly. Before the lawsuit, only 6 people had downloaded the photo, but after the lawsuit, hundreds of thousands of people had seen it. The Streisand effect has since become a generic term for when an attempt at censorship achieves the opposite of its goal. If I were writing a glossary entry,
yeah, so that's why you shouldn't censor people. All right.
On the Streisand effect, I wouldn't put a picture of her next to it. I would put a picture of Nick Fuentes. Fuentes launched his career as a college freshman in 2017 with a barely watched show called America First. In Fuentes' telling,
well, yeah, usually when you start the show, it's barely watched. Duh.
He was a mainstream Republican in high school. Then Donald Trump's rise radicalized him against immigration, and the experience of being ostracized by fellow Republicans for questioning Israel radicalized him against Jews as a whole. Whatever the truth of this origin story, it didn't take much for Fuentes to transform himself from a mainstream conservative into a lover of dictators, including communist ones, and across-the-board.
It's funny how he's like, it didn't take much. Whatever he said, it didn't take much, though. You know, it was almost like he was like genetically predispositioned to want to. I'm not saying he said that, but it's just kind of coming across that way.
Bigot and a textbook anti-Semite.
I remember because that's an important date to me. And
Why?
it's Joseph Stalin's birthday.
Oh.
I'm a fan.
You're a fan of Stalin's.
Mm-hmm. Always an admirer.
As he became more extreme, Fuentes began to experience what would become one of the most complete cancellations ever consummated in American culture. In his freshman year, he got harassed for wearing a MAGA hat on campus. After participating in the 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, his network dropped his show, and a deluge of death threats prompted him to drop out of Boston University. By early 2020, he had been banned from Twitch, Reddit, and YouTube. After he appeared at the January 6, 2021 riot, and there was no evidence that he actually entered the Capitol, Fuentes was banned from streaming on DLive, and his bank account was temporarily frozen by the Department of Justice.
Yeah, everybody was saying switch to DLive. Everyone was like, yeah, get on DLive, man.
As part of what it said was an investigation, though charges were never brought and his accounts were unfrozen months later. By the end of 2021, he had been placed on the TSA no-fly list, which is generally reserved for terrorists, as well as banned from Twitter, PayPal, Venmo, Patreon, Shopify, Stripe, Coinbase, and even Airbnb. Now, as a classical liberal, it's not hard for me to hold 2 thoughts in my head at once. The first is that Nick Fuentes is an American citizen with the right to free speech and should not be targeted by the authorities for his views. And while social media and payment platforms are well within their rights to drop him if he violates their terms of service, it seems to me that the ham-fisted attempt to erase him from public life only drew more attention to his ideas in the long run, just as the Streisand effect would predict. However, the second thought is just as crucial. Just because he got viciously canceled doesn't mean that people should listen to what he has to say now. Nick Fuentes is a force for evil in American.
Wait, what? That doesn't even, logically follow. That just because he got canceled doesn't mean people should listen to what he has to say now. What does what he has to say have to do with the fact that he got canceled? Those are two separate logical ideas. Him getting canceled is because the people that canceled him didn't like what he was saying. The reason why you should listen to what he's saying is so you can find out what he's saying.
In politics, he hates minorities, he hates women, and most important of all, he hates.
Does he hate these people, or does he make fun of minorities? Does he make fun of women?
Hates the version of America envisioned by the founding fathers and actually wants to replace it with a religious dictatorship.
Well, yeah, he's Catholic. Welcome to America, man.
If conservatives are actually trying to conserve what is good in the American political tradition and prevent radical changes in direction, then they should recoil against Fuentes-ism with every atom in their bodies. The word.
Well, I mean, that kind of really depends. I mean, if you're a Catholic and you like dictatorship, or you like a kind of more authoritarian thing going on, then why would they be against it? And for someone like me that's like more libertarian, I don't want the government to be able to have that much power in the first place. So what he says doesn't really matter to me, because I'm just against the government having that much control over me. And in fact, he should, if you're like and supposedly anti-authoritarian, or you're against this type of stuff, this is a great example of why you should be against anyone having that much power. Whether it's Nick Fuentes or Santa Claus or, you know, whoever, right? It's a good example of why it's like why you shouldn't want anyone to have that much power, right? Because it shouldn't matter what one guy in society thinks. Like if he doesn't like these people, or he jokes around about different types of people, who cares? Because to me, I don't want anybody to have that much power over me that their opinion should matter that much that I have to be like afraid now because they have an opinion.
Words racist and misogynist have been abused to the point of meaninglessness in American discourse over the past decade. Social media activists have cried wolf so many times that very few people now bother to listen. But the point of the boy who cried wolf parable is that eventually the wolf arrives, and when it does, nobody is as alarmed as they should be. Like Aesop's wolf, Nick Fuentes has indeed arrived. And just as in the fable, mainstream conservatives do not seem appropriately alarmed, as demonstrated by his recent friendly appearances on Tucker Carlson's show, as well as other popular podcasts like Dave Smith's Part of the Problem, the Red Scare podcast, and the PBD podcast. How has Fuentes achieved?
Pretty much every podcast that I've seen him on, people are like either debating him or they're trying to call him out, which they don't do that to everybody else. Everybody else can just go on the podcast, have a good time, joke around. They got to grill Nick and get him to disavow this and disavow that every single time. And then it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, think about it, right? They'll bring on these people from like military people. It's like, do they make them disavow? Oh, you went to a foreign country and shot people. Disavow now. No, they're like, oh, you're a hero, right? And I'm not saying that they're not. I'm just saying that, you know, everybody does something that other people in the society disagree with, right? Like some people are transgender. Other people disagree with that. Does that mean that if a transgender person goes onto a talk show, like now the host has to grill them? Oh, well, you know, some people in society don't like transgenders, so explain, like, you know, or you can just name any category. There's going to be somebody in society that disagrees with them, basically. Right? So it seems kind of arbitrary that Nick needs to be grilled every time he goes onto a talk show.
This remarkable infiltration into the culture? Well, it's all been made possible by the fact that he's successfully playing a double game, and the people giving him friendly interviews are enabling this. There's not one Nick Fuentes, there's two. There's the unfiltered Fuentes who rants directly to his followers on Rumble, and can barely go 5 minutes without saying something heinous about Jews, blacks, Hispanics, or women.
They're always coming up with, no, it's not the Jews. No, it's not women. No, it's not blacks. It's actually really complicated. No, it fucking isn't at all. Jews are running society. Women need to shut the fuck up. Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. And we would live in...
Yeah, I'm sorry. That shit is funny. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just like way too cynical or something, but I'm just I'm like, oh my God. Like, I mean, it's like he's kind of serious, but it's kind of like whatever. Like I'm saying, like, exactly. It's kind of a good example of why you shouldn't want people to be in charge of you.
In paradise. It's that simple.
This version of Nick Fuentes verbally abuses his
I've heard that before, though, that if there were no black people in the USA, that white people would already have flying cars by now.
followers in the way that an insult comic might do, and they love it. He doesn't act particularly religious, and he certainly isn't preachy. He's laughing and smiling the whole time, and his followers basically feel like they're hanging out with a crass but hilarious buddy, listening to him take the piss out of everybody, including them.
Yes, he's using a Dorilla pillow. How can you tell? Have you heard about Dorilla Ergo? It's the cutting-edge ergonomic pillow that people...
Then there is the comparatively sane character that Nick Fuentes plays on the podcast circuit. This version of Nick Fuentes is a serious Catholic. He's clearly read lots of books.
See, I think part of this is a problem with podcasting, right? Where, you know, in public, when you go to like meet people, like say you're going to meet the president, of course you're going to act like more, you know, reserved, more proper in that situation than when you're just hanging out with your friends, right? And it's kind of like that's what we do now with the like live streams and podcasts and all that other stuff. It's like sometimes you're just being yourself and you're joking around with your friends and hanging out and telling jokes and stuff. And other times it's like a more serious thing where you're talking about maybe like a serious topic, or you're doing an interview with someone you respect. And then you're not going to start going off the handle and flying off the handle and joking around when you're doing an interview with the priest, right? But maybe if you're just on a regular day live stream and you're trying to get some extra super chats, you might goof off a little bit, tell a couple jokes, a couple dirty jokes or racist jokes, whatever you want to call them, right? So it's kind of more like a thing with podcasting and how podcasting is. Because what are you going to do? Remember how like some people, they have like 5 different channels. They've got like their professional channel, and then they've got the subscribe to my blog channel where you see me do my daily stuff, and then they've got their Instagram and their Facebook, and they've all got different things and different levels of, you know, professionalism or not, or it's more, one channel might be more casual, but he just has the one channel. I'm the same way. People tell me all the time, don't post your music streams on the channel. That's why you're not getting views. If you post a music making stream, people don't like that. And then you post a political video, and then you post like a history video. But I don't want to have to keep track of like 20 different channels. And it's like, this way you can just see who I am, right? And I think a lot of more people have been doing that lately. This is who I am. Some days I'm pissed off because somebody said something, or some days I'm trying to do like a more proper video where it's like talking about political topics or something like that. Sometimes I'm just joking around, you know, blowing off steam or playing a video game. And I think you're starting to see that more on a lot of channels where people just have one channel and it's just them. And sometimes they're talking about this and sometimes they're talking about that. Or some people are more like a business channel, you know, like an Alex Jones type channel where he's like very professional all the time. And then some people are just straight casual all the time, right? They're always as loose as possible. They just do a live stream with their buddies once a week and they joke around and stuff and bring up a couple topics or whatever. And then that's it, really. That they don't take it any further than that. So that's more like a podcasting thing, I think, than him trying to be duplicitous and trick you into thinking that, oh, he thinks one thing and now he's saying another thing and then he's saying, no, I don't see that. I think when people directly ask him what his views are, for the most part, I've seen him, he just says what his views are. And then when he's joking around, it's pretty obvious because he's like laughing and, saying things that you basically can't say in polite society.
He's earnest. He doesn't joke or curse very much. His vision of the country has much more to do with preserving what he describes as a white suburban American way of life, think Little League baseball and hot dogs on the 4th of July, than with a hostile theocratic takeover of the federal government.
There is a legitimate need to reassure people, and this is kind of what I've been doing on these podcasts, that we don't want to harm anybody. We don't want to kill anybody. We don't want to harm anybody. Right. We just want to put America first.
All of this brings up a few questions about Fuentes' sincerity. First, if his main fear is that the next generation of Americans won't be white enough, then why does he tell his followers that modern women are too annoying to bother with and that married men are cucks?
Bruh, have you been paying attention for the last 15 years? What are you talking about? Why does he talk about modern women and call married guys cucks? Oh man, he's one of these guys where he's doesn't even know about the manosphere. He's like, what do you mean? Women do negative things? Bruh, catch up, man. Seriously.
Fuck you.
Watch some Sandman or something. You gotta start somewhere.
No. Pussy whip, bitch. Yeah, all these people posting this wife and husband content. It's so funny when my wife tells me to do stuff. I'm such a pussy. Ugh. Imagine such a pathetic existence.
Shouldn't he be encouraging his followers to get along with women, marry, be fruitful, and multiply?
Bruh, that had nothing to do with getting married. It was a joke. Damn, man. I thought I was serious. Have you ever heard the "Take My Wife, Please"? You never heard that one?
The immigrants he's so worried about will certainly be doing just that. And more importantly, why do Rumble Nick and Podcast Nick seem to be two totally different people? While it's normal to come across a bit different...
I just went over that. Because sometimes there's a time to be professional and there's sometimes a time to joke around. And since we're all online 24/7 now, it's kind of blurring together.
In different contexts, the two versions of Nick Fuentes seem to have different beliefs altogether. Podcast Nick, for example, insists that he's a patriotic American who just wants to put our country first. But Rumble Nick believes that America is an evil country, that, quote, Americanism is a heresy in the Catholic Church, that we must replace American democracy with a dictatorship and ultimately enforce what he calls Catholic Taliban rule in America.
That's why we need dictatorship. That's unironically why we need to get rid of all that. We need to take control of the media.
Hold on, I need to see how old this Nick video is. Damn, this is from years ago, bro. Get some updated videos.
Podcast Nick will tell you that he's celibate because
that's from 5 years ago, man.
Until marriage. But Rumble Nick will make it crystal.
That video is from 5 years ago, man. Come on, do better, man.
Crystal clear that his celibacy has nothing to do with religion and everything to do with the fact that he finds women to be, quote, fucking annoying.
Guys get to a certain age and they're like, you know what? Women suck. They're talking too much. They're not hot anymore. You're fat, you're chubby, you're not as hot as you think you are. You fucking talk too much, you're a bitch.
Podcast Nick.
Wait. Which part was he wrong about, though? Seriously, I'm trying to figure out. I mean, obviously not every woman, but in a generalization compared to what was going on in the 1950s. I mean, how's he wrong?
Will argue that Christians cannot sanction racism and will approvingly cite Galatians 3:28. There is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither bond nor free, there is neither male nor female, for ye are all one in Christ Jesus. Rumblenik will viciously mock liberal Christians for citing this exact same Bible quote and explain that he would rather Christians didn't read the Bible at all than use that specific passage against him.
This is where we get liberals.
Yeah, bro. Because haven't you ever heard of the Tower of Babylon? Like that was like a whole like story. It wasn't just like one line in the Bible. So there's a lot more going on than just pulling out lines out of the Bible and trying to like make that make sense.
Saying, but the Bible says neither Jew nor Greek, but the Bible says this is where you get liberals using it against us.
Podcast Nick will roll his eyes at the accusation that he's a Nazi. Like the character Mark Ravenhead from Succession, he'll make you
I think we went over this already about the National Socialism problem and how that's pretty much where we're headed anyway.
seem ridiculous for even asking the question. But Rumblenik thinks that Hitler was, quote, really fucking cool. He believes that probably only two or...
Bruh, I mean, of course the Holocaust was horrible, but I mean, everybody knows the Volkswagen, the Autobahn, the lunch break, things like that were generally positive for society to the point where we adopted those same methods, like building an interstate highway system with pretty much completely straight throughways and, you know, making car like Fords and other cars that were easily repairable. Those were pretty much like Hitler's ideas, kind of. So, I mean, I know I'm going to get in a lot of trouble for saying that, but
300,000 Jews were killed by the Nazis. Definitely not 6 million. And just last week he said...
I mean, it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of the same like Marxist stuff, because then you can just make the same argument about America. And then you can just be like, well, you know, we killed all Native Americans and stuff. So, you know, all the other good stuff, like now no slavery in pretty much anywhere where, you know, Western troops have been to, and capitalism freeing like millions or billions of people from abject, like dirt poor poverty. But, you know, we did that one thing to the Indians, though, so it invalidates all the other good stuff.
Not for the first time, that he finds the notion of Nazi gas chambers hard to believe.
People talk about, well, you know, what about the gas chambers? Well, to the extent that that's real, I find that hard to believe, but to the extent that's real, there have been atrocities committed and genocides committed in all times and all places. Let's acknowledge why Hitler casts the long shadow, because that confers a political benefit upon Jews. That's why.
Rumblenik also argues that the Jews, quote, are responsible for every war in the world. It's not even debatable at this point, which could literally be an entry in Joseph Goebbels' diary. Podcast...
Bruh, you didn't read Tragedy and Hope, I see. Just check out Bank for International Settlements. It's not all Jews, but the people that were in charge of it were Jews. So it's kind of hard not to say Jews. I guess if any Jewish people just want to call me a nigga, that's fine too. You're cool. I'm cool with that.
Nick frames his opposition to interracial marriage mainly as a personal preference that wouldn't affect anyone else. Rumblenik believes that the Jim Crow system was actually superior to the integrated society that we have today, the logical implication being that we should bring it back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not for forced integration either. I mean, if people want to voluntarily integrate, but if you saw what happened during civil rights, I mean, it was pretty much at gunpoint. So you can see why people are a little bit upset about it when they found out that it was at gunpoint. And they're like, that's not very libertarian. That's not very liberal. Using guns to force people to do stuff doesn't sound like liberal to me. Well, I guess nowadays liberal means dictator. But, you know, the classical liberal American sense.
Generation of white person. I'm not living around blacks. Sorry. You know, I want white kids, and I don't want my white kids bringing home black people to marry. It's racial for me.
Sounds natural. Sounds natural. I mean, can't blame him.
And Call me racist. Oh, very Christian of you. I don't give a fuck.
Podcast Nick wants to reassure Tucker Carlson's audience, for instance, that, quote, we don't want to harm anybody. We don't want to kill anybody. We just want to put America first. But Rumble Nick routinely says things like,
bruh, this is coming from a guy that doesn't think that the war in Gaza is a genocide. Like, you got to keep that in mind when he's saying this, right? When he's saying all this stuff about, oh, Nick doesn't mind a little violence and blah, 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 right? Bro, you're in support of Israel bombing Gaza. You're like, it's not a genocide. What are you talking about, man? There ain't no genociding over here.
We're in a holy war, and I will tell you this. Because we're willing to die in the holy war, we will make them die in the holy war. They have no future in America. The enemies of Christ have no future in this world.
Subaru and our retailers are the largest automotive donors to Make-A-Wish, supporting kids in...
lest there be any doubt about his violent intentions, Rumble Nick went on...
See, take note, right? Oh, he's so violent, but you're okay with bombing Gaza. Totally fine with it. Not a genocide. And in fact, if we should relate to anyone as being the victims in this situation, we should relate to the Jewish people. Bruh, that's in your like Wikipedia bio. So, I don't know what you're talking about right here.
This unironic rant in January 2024 worth quoting at length.
There is an occult element at the high levels of society, and specifically among the Jews.
Watch like the 10 last videos that I did on Freemasonry to see that what he's saying is pretty much 100% true. I don't see how you can say that it's not true. There's obviously occult type symbols all over Washington, D.C. Freemasonry and stuff like that includes the Kabbalah and other occult philosophies. And it is in a high level of power in the United States. So you're going to have to disprove what he's saying before you just say, oh, it's nuts. Oh, he's just saying nuts stuff.
So many of the people that are perpetrating the lies and the destruction on the country, they are evildoers. They are people that worship false gods. They are people that practice magic or rituals or whatever. And more than anything, those people need to be, when we take power, they need to be given the death penalty. Straight up.
Oh, I saw this on Crowder yesterday. It's completely out of context because then he was saying politically, basically. They cut out the politically part.
They must be absolutely annihilated when we take power. This is God's country. This is Jesus's country. This is not the domain of atheists or devil worshippers or perfidious Jews. This is Christ's country.
So Nick Fuentes is essentially a two-man operation. Rumble Nick entered...
Whoa, did you see how he did air quotes for like Nick Fuentes? Is it Nick Fuentes? Like, why would you put air quotes around someone's name? Because that means that it's like not exactly what you mean. Like when you say, oh, there was a really big like explosion at the place, where you mean is like what wasn't really that big, right? So if you're saying Nick Fuentes in air quotes, like what is that? That you're like saying that Nick Fuentes is fake? You're trying to like subtly suggest that. It's crazy. That neurolinguistic programming stuff. Check it out. Check out NLP for public speaking.
Energizes his core fans by attacking minorities, attacking women, and attacking America. And then...
Bruh, you don't think that bombing Gaza is a genocide, so you need to really like check what you're talking about.
Podcast Nick runs interference with the wider media, framing his sincerely racist rants as out-of-context clips, confident that most of, say, Tucker Carlson's audience will never see his Rumble streams and thus will never realize that adding context usually makes his clips sound worse, not better. By playing this double game, Nick Fuentes ends up garnering sympathy from that wider audience while still keeping his
No, I've listened to the whole show. A lot of them. And I mean, he's pretty sensible when he's actually talking about real stuff. And then, yeah, he'll start singing about how he loves Hitler for like 20 minutes. It's kind of creepy, but whatever. It's just a reminder of why you shouldn't want to have anybody ruling over you. Because, I mean, if you're into dictatorship, then Nick Fuentes is your man. But, I mean, everybody else, it's just a reminder why you shouldn't create those type of positions in society in the first place. Because then you won't have to worry about what his opinion is.
Groyper base energized. To make an analogy, it's Rumble Nick who commits all the crimes in private, but it's Podcast Nick who shows up to the televised court date clean-shaven in a three-piece suit. I want to go out on a limb and...
Bruh. If you hadn't kicked him off of YouTube, you wouldn't even be able to make this claim. It's ridiculous. It's like what I'm saying. It's like when you go to an interview with someone you respect, like obviously he respects Tucker Carlson, so he's not going to go on there and start goofing off. He's gonna put on a suit, shave, you know what I'm saying, and speak as respectfully as possible to someone who he respects. I don't see what the problem with that is. I don't see what the problem is if he goes on, what's his name, PBD podcast or whatever, and that guy's got a huge podcast. So he wants to show up, look respectful, speak respectful. I think that's what any normal person would do. And then when you're on your own podcast, on your own channel, you're goofing off. Because it's like you're in charge. So you goof off, you tell your jokes, whatever. Who knows? Maybe it's just this big plan, even though anyone can tune into the Rumble channel. Just because you guys try to act like if you're not on YouTube, even though everyone gets banned off of YouTube, then that's the game they try to play, right? It's like this subtle, subliminal, well, if he's not on the normal channels, it's obvious that there must be something wrong. Because obviously being on Rumble it's obvious that there's some, well, people just don't go to Rumble because they assume that there's something wrong, because the only people that are on Rumble are people that get kicked off of YouTube, and most people are like slow, so they just assume stuff. They just assume that YouTube knows what it's doing, and therefore, if he got kicked off, then it must be for a good reason, right? Because that's what most people think, right? Because it's like I always say, it's like this, like job bias, right? It's like a McDonald's worker job bias, right? Because when you're like a politician, right, they keep making all these huge mistakes, right? Like starting fake wars, not fake wars, but using fake evidence to start wars, right? Or all the other types of weird corruption stuff that goes on inside political things. And the fact that these people can't get fired, and people just assume that they know what they're doing, right? Because you have a bias, because when you work at McDonald's and you mess up on the fries one time, you get fired, right? You get fired the first time you mess up, that someone ordered a large and you gave them a medium, and they ordered a Coke and you gave them a Sprite, you get fired. So you assume that people that are in these high level positions of power, right, that they have the same type of pressures on them, that if they made a huge mistake, well, of course they would have been fired. Why are they still there? They can't have made a mistake, because that's how like logic works, right? It's like an apophatic type of logic, where you're like, well, they couldn't be making a mistake, because if they're in charge of like the nuclear button, then somebody would fire them, right? Because they can't just make a mistake. Because if I make a mistake serving fries to someone, I get fired. But it doesn't work like that all the way up, right? Okay.
Suggests something that I can't prove. Nick Fuentes knows exactly what he's doing. He is consciously playing this double game as part of a long-term strategy to become popular enough to take the reins of power, at which point he plans to pivot towards the extreme and unpopular policies that he advocates daily on Rumble.
Well, again, if you let him on YouTube, then he wouldn't have to do it on Rumble. Right? And that's why people don't go to Rumble, because they assume that the person is there for some logical reason when it's actually not true, and it's just arbitrary censorship because you're allowed to be on here and you totally advocate for the killing of Gazan people, women and children, and then you try to act like saying the word genocide is the problem with the situation, not the bombing of the children and the women and the men. Let's keep it real, and the men. Right? And you can just sit up here, you don't get fired, you get promotions, you get 230K subscribers, right? And you're totally okay with bombing some people, killing some people, hurt. Oh, but they're not in this country, so then it's okay, right? Oh, they're not white, so it's okay, right? What?
I'm not pulling this out of thin air. Nick Fuentes has indicated that he has political ambitions. At the same time, he openly admits that his actual views are not popular enough to win a national election, and that his Groyper movement will never be big enough to take power by force.
Yeah, that's what happens when you're a political minority in a two-party system filled with, like, I don't know what type of people you are, but it's kind of crazy that you're like against reparations, but you're for bombing Gaza. I mean, I don't even know. I mean, it's like, come on, man. You're like up here, and you're like, Nick Fuentes is the most dangerous person in the world. He wants to be a dictator, blah, 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 blah. Well, meanwhile, you support Israel bombing people. And then you want to quibble over the use of a word. Oh, well, you see, it's not a genocide. It's bad. Killing people is bad. Bombing people is bad. Can we say that? Can you come out and say Coleman Hughes knows exactly what he's doing when he says, well, it's not a genocide, instead of just saying, well, yeah, it's bad and we shouldn't bomb people. Maybe Israel should stop bombing people. Oh, wait. Okay.
His implied plan, in other words, is to soft pedal his extreme views just enough to build a large...
Oh, that's a good term for it. Yeah, you're soft pedaling the bombing of Gaza, bro.
following, large enough to actually win an election, and then remove the mask and begin implementing his extreme ideas at the first available opportunity. We've seen this playbook before.
Taxes was feeling unwelcome. Now Taxes is an open door to new TurboTax stores. Meet our experts. They do your taxes, so you can walk out with confidence. Now this is Taxes.
This knife was Plan B. Now it's the best gift I've ever given.
When the history buff Daryl Cooper first sprang into the mainstream on Tucker Carlson's show, where he claimed that Winston Churchill was the chief villain of the Second World War...
Dude, you don't even understand context. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about bombing people is always bad, no matter which side does it, whether it's your side or the other side or people that aren't on either of your sides. It's always bad. It's always bad unless they attacked you for a specific reason and then you attack them back to neutralize their ability to attack you. And then that's it. You know, continuously keep bombing them and keep attacking them over and over and over again forever. That's called bullying. That's called mistreatment. It's like once they can't fight back anymore, then it's time to end the fight. Oh, but you're soft pedaling the Gaza war, right? Bro, it's not a genocide. Yeah, it's bad.
It immediately touched off an argument about whether Cooper was really a Nazi sympathizer. His critics believe that he obviously was. I mean, why else would he be regurgitating?
Bro, if you've ever been to a lunchtime cafeteria at your school, you're a Nazi sympathizer. If you ever drove on a super straight, super long highway from one state to another, you're a Nazi sympathizer. Oh, wait, wasn't Henry Ford a Nazi sympathizer? Yes. So if you ever drove a car that was made on an assembly line, you're a Nazi sympathizer. Oh, was Walt Disney down with the Nazis? We're not even going to go there. We're not even going to go there. All right. We're almost done. I'm running out of time. I'm kind of late, but I'm going to try to get through this.
Long debunked Nazi talking points. But his defender claimed that he was just a good faith history buff given to occasional hyperbole. And they had a point. There was plenty of smoke, but no fire. Then, sure enough, the proof came. Mother Jones unearthed a comment that Cooper had allegedly made years earlier under an anonymous username on the white nationalist website Counter.
Uh-oh, they found your anonymous joint. Oh, man.
Occurrence. Quote, a movement like this needs to operate at various levels, from the intellectual core that remains terrifying and offensive to the general population right up until the big shift, on up to covert supporters slipping occasional language and subversive information into conversation and normie media, Juggernaut Nihilism wrote. Think of how most people you know got here. It wasn't from basic American ideology to reading Mein Kampf and then boom, they're on board. It's a process, and you have to initiate people without scaring them off and without blaming them for being scared off. The human mind works the way it works, and the enemy studies it carefully, controls the education system, and dominates the media. In other words, everyone who suspected that...
Wait, can we get some evidence of that?
Cooper's contrarianism was really meant to be a gateway drug to Nazism was spot on. It's rare in the world of public intellectuals that we get such a perfect confirmation that a bad faith actor is indeed acting in bad faith. With Nick Fuentes, we don't need to wait for the smoking gun. He says what he believes every day on Rumble, if only we would listen. All we have to do is clear away the various smoke screens that he's thrown up to blind us to the sincerity of his dark ambitions.
Whoa, but wait a minute. How is putting a quote from Daryl Cooper proving that Nick Fuentes is bad? I don't see any evidence here. You're saying that an anonymous quote from somebody that's not Nick Fuentes proves that Nick Fuentes is bad. I get it. That's how it works now. Okay.
Cancel culture doesn't work. But it's not a choice between cancellation on the one end and giving friendly interviews to Nazi sympathizers on the other. What podcast...
Bruh, I mean, I'm giving an interview kind of to a Gazan genocide sympathizer. Oh, wait, it's not a genocide, though. That's right. Oh. So I guess I shouldn't listen to what you have to say either.
Podcast hosts need to do is confront Nick Fuentes with the malevolent viewpoints that he has repeatedly and recently expressed and arm themselves with the facts required to rebut him in real time. Or to put it differently, they need to be journalists.
You haven't done a very good job of rebutting anything so far, bro. It's like, you're like, well, he said one thing one day, and then he said another thing another day. And they weren't the same thing. And here's an anonymous quote from a message board from 10 years ago from Daryl Cooper. So that proves that Nick Fuentes is bad.
Journalists. It's not impish contrarianism. It's not clips taken out of context. It's not irony or hyperbole, at least not in any sense that's actually exculpatory. It's a calculated and radical attempt to take over first the conservative movement and then the country. The only question now is, will the real conservatives wherever they are, let it happen.
Bro, this is exactly why you shouldn't let people be in charge of you. But people are like, oh man, these libertarians are stupid. I know, libertarians are stupid. But yeah, that's the main problem. I mean, if you want a dictator, then Nick is your guy. And if you don't want a dictator, then it doesn't really matter what Nick says. But it kind of seems like Coleman Hughes here, he wants to have an authoritarian government, but just not one. Just not the type that Nick wants to have. So I guess when you're defending genocide, it's okay. But when Nick is defending against the genocide of his own race, that's bad. So I'm trying to figure out what's what. We can see that Coleman Hughes is cool with the war in Israel. So it's kind of hard for me to listen to what he has to say about Nick. All right. I'm going to get out of here with that. I will talk to you later. Peace.